with candidates running for office this November. I would like to thank in advance the sponsor for this event and others, Northwell Health. And with that, we can jump right in. Welcome. Appreciate you taking the time. Tell me what you consider, let's start what you consider the most important issues of this race.
Yeah, I think, I've certainly served before. I've come from a government background where I've worked in county government. I've worked in town government as a town supervisor, been a judge, worked for the state, worked for the administration, previous gubernatorial administration, handling Sandy. I think right now there's a concern about governance in general. Do we trust the people who lead? Do we have confidence that they're able to resolve our problems, address our needs? The world is chaotic. So I think first and foremost, we need to have people that are responsible and that we can trust, that are governing in a way that's responsible and effective. My number one concern today is really what's going on around us. We look at what's going on in other parts of the world with Israel, horrific stories coming out of there. So the concern immediately becomes on how do we keep people safe? How do we make sure people are protected in their own homes and their communities? I think that's something that every local official needs to be able to stand up and do. And of course, as a Democrat, knowing that over the last couple of years, there's been challenges to the way Democrats are perceived in regards to law enforcement and public safety. And so I need to show, and we need to show as Democrats, that Democrats can work with law enforcement and do, and that we will keep people safe, and that we will make sure the community is protected, whether it's from some outside threat or some local person doing harm. My history certainly is one where I focus on public safety. I've worked with police. I have some law enforcement endorsements. I know the other side does as well. I've worked in Suffolk County, where I work with the police on various issues. I'm working with them today, this morning, in fact, in dealing with potential threats regarding Hamas threats that are being spread around the world, and days of rage and that kind of thing, where we need to make sure people have access to our local police, and our local police are present. I know that's happening in Nassau, and it's certainly happening in Suffolk, where I've been working with our police force. So I think a key issue is public safety. I think then we get down to just governance. The ability to fulfill our obligation in local government. Local government is about making sure our community is working, that the streets are paved, that that we can address problems such as flooding when they arise, that we can maintain our parks, that we can put in the proper public safety measures when necessary, that our building department works. All these issues that have fallen by the wayside in many respects. And I think the current supervisor is talking about someday she's going to fix this stuff. Someday she's going to get to it. Someday she's going to be able to work with people she apparently can't work with now. They're stagnating. The government is not working right now. And this town, 237,000 strong, needs to work. It's an extraordinary place. I've done it before, and I certainly hope to do it again to make sure that everything that people expect of their local government will be achieved.
One thing that we have seen in this race, and it's kind of an interesting thing, it's the number of, there are television commercials and there are mailers. I'm not sure about the origin of the television commercials. I think there's one really that they're doing it, they play it a lot. But there are a lot of mailers from the state Republican Party. So one, I'd like you to address some of that, but second, where are you getting support from the Democratic? Is there a state committee? Is there a comparable state committee that is assisting you? Or is this something that just the Republicans are doing?
So certainly I'm getting some support from state and county Democrats. The mailings that you're seeing in the TV commercials are generally being financed by the Nassau County Republican Party, as far as we understand. They use the state indicia when mailing. It's part of a process that most campaigns use. Certainly we do that as well with our state party, because we work together and we have a level of confidence that they'll invest in our race when we put money towards towards the state party. But this money is really coming from the Nassau County Republican Party that's being used against me. And Yeah, the reality is, I come in with what we understand to be a good reputation, a reputation as getting things done, representing everybody in our community, and getting elected. And so the only way they can win is if they spend a significant amount of money to bring my name, my good name down, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Certainly nothing that they're saying, or certainly very little of what they're saying is true. They distort, they deceive. It's the truth doesn't matter kind of thing. It's winning at all costs. It's make it sound good. It's a public relations campaign in reverse, where it's just destroying the character, so that people will be so frustrated that they, especially Democrats and blanks that might have voted for me, that they wouldn't vote. So that's what their strategy is, and that's what all that mailing is. The sheer volume of it is somewhat surprising. They'll have spent more on this race than any race in history of the Republican Party. I'll have raised more money on the Democratic side than any Democrat in history in North Hempstead. But the $1 million to $2 million that the Republicans are spending to try to bring me down, so that they can control the entire county, right? They have control of the two other towns, Hempstead, Oyster Bay, the legislature, the county executive's office. I suppose they want to make sure that they have a clean slate to do what they want, and I would be a problem for them in that regard. And so that's really coming from the Republican Party. The state party I work with, Jay Jacobs, the state chair, is also the county chair, and he's working with me, and we're looking to raise some funds together to counter some of what they're saying. We generally don't need to counter them piece by piece. They're just barrage. It's the telling. You tell a lie, if you tell it enough times, the Republicans have learned that people start to believe it, and so that's their strategy. I have confidence that the good people of North Hempstead will see through those lies and look at my record and my history and what I've done throughout my entire public career, and stick with me. I expect they will.
They're repeating basically three major things over and over. And let me just ask you, because when you get it on a mailer, the thing about mailers and television commercials is it's one-sided. You only hear that one side. So let me give you a chance to address that other side. So the number one thing is the increase in taxes over, you were town supervisor from 2004 to 2013, 10 years. And they're saying taxes went up 44%. Can you address that number? Is it true? Is there a reason for it?
Yeah, the 44% number is what Republicans have decided to use against Democrats throughout Long Island. It's a number they make up. There's no connection to reality. It's a number they use on virtually campaigns throughout Long Island. They've used it against me my first year, my second year, my fourth campaign. The same number. It doesn't really change. It never changes. And so it's an interesting dynamic. Whatever their polling is, that's the number that they've decided to use. And they're divorced from reality, and it doesn't really matter. And so they just lie and increase the lie. I could tell you, if you look at, and by the way, I would ask, I would challenge, I would implore Blank Slate to do a story on this, to research this, and we can certainly show you the history if you want. The taxes, I had, and I'll give you the actual answer in regard to taxes. We did not raise taxes. I'd never raised taxes 44%. It's probably about $44, maybe $45, $46 over 10 years combined. And so if we look at the stories for budget articles for the 10 years that I ran, you'll see that of the 9 budgets that I voted on, I was there for 10 years, but the last one I didn't vote on because so it might have been amended because I had left a couple months early to join the Cuomo administration to head up Superstorm Sandy relief and to take on NYFA, by the way, as chairman of NYFA, to oversee NASA's finances to get them in a better place. The 9 budgets that I voted on, 5 of them had no tax increase, and 1 of them had a tax decrease. And so, they're arguing Jon Kaiman did this every year, whatever it is. It's not true. So 5 of my 9 budgets, it was either we held the line on taxes or taxes actually decreased. The other 4, there were nominal increases. 1 year, the increase was on an average household in North Hempstead, and this is published in Newsday, $6. Which really is a negligible amount, and we appreciate that every dollar counts, but $6 when you're paying significant amounts of taxes, the town tax, the lowest portion of your tax, was very low. 1 year, it was $7.50 was the average cost to the average household. One year it was, I believe, $11, and one year $16. And so the impression that they're trying to give is that taxes were out of control during those years. It's simply not true. I got reelected over and over and over again. The people at the time were well aware. If I was doing what they said I was doing, certainly I wouldn't have gotten reelected each time by the local taxpayers, by the town taxpayers.
Do you know what the actual percentage was? Did anyone on your staff look at that and say, well, no, the real number is over that 10-year period is this?
No, because the percentages, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? And so this is about using statistics to create a false impression and a lie. And so we're not, it's impossible to try to counter that and say, well, let me argue with statistics, especially when they have the $1 million+ that they're spending in the mail and another chunk of money that they're spending on TV or whatever that number is combined. So and there's another added complication. The way town budgets work, there's a lot of budgets that the town votes on. So we vote on a part town budget, which is a budget that a town budget that doesn't include villages. We vote on a general fund budget, and so that town budget is separate. So everybody in the town pays that. We vote on special districts that exist within the town. There could be a dozen or so special districts. So we're voting on a lot of different things. And so it's really, really confusing in that regard. So we look at it and say, well, what was, every year after we do a budget, Newsday comes to us and says, well, what's the average cost per household of the combined, the net taxes? And we say, here, this is what it is. And so sometimes the general fund might go up a little. It might go up $3 or $4 more, and the town tax might go down a little, and it goes fluctuate. So to say that, could you take a percentage of one budget and say, well, we're just going to look at the ones that went up, even though they were balanced with other ones that went down? There's creative ways to distort the reality. But if you look at your bill, if you look at your tax bill, those years that I was there, you would see that it was very nominal, and the town general fund tax was pretty steady. And so, we're confident that if anyone were to look at it, we're now posting this, and we're going to be sending this information that I just gave you out in a few different mailings in a few different ways. But the challenge is if they're trying to make this about raising taxes, then her presentation on the other side of that coin, I think I'm pretty confident that the voters will get it, that they know that the people sending it can't be trusted, their information is incorrect. I would ask you as a newspaper and Newsday and others to research this. Take a look yourself. This is something that can be investigated and confirmed one way or the other. And so we would ask people to do that.
Okay. Let me just throw the other thing, because I want to give you a chance, because it's out there. It's on television. It's in these different places. You did a 33% pay raise.
So when I first came in the first year, the town, the town board did an analysis and changed all the salaries, and the town supervisor's salary went up from $100,000 to $132,000, I believe it was. I did not get another pay raise for the next 9 years. My opponent, by the way, says she rejects that raise, but she took the raise, right? So she didn't give back that money. She doesn't take the original salary. She's taking the salary with that increase in it. So she's taking the raise also.
Yeah, she acknowledged that in our conversation. We asked her that, and that's what she said.
Yeah, so she obfuscates and says, "Well, that's not how." Whatever it is, she says. I don't know. I didn't see it, and I'll certainly take a look. But the reality is that the town of North Hempstead supervisor's salary is the lowest amongst towns in Nassau, and it's a serious job. The town board at the time decided to set an amount that was.
That all happened in the first year that you're in office?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's no other raise for the next 9 years. So that was the salary. And, it's there for people to see, the notion all these years later that somehow this is some surprise or whatever it is, that the sinister thing. I ran for election 4 times after that salary was set. And again, the people elected me each time. So they're trying to rewrite history in a way to make it sound more sinister, to justify, their failure in governance here today. And again, we would point that out that it really is a horrific kind of level of competence or lack thereof in the current administration, which is why nothing's really happening. And you look at the achievements that they talk about. Well, she sent this letter, or she demanded this, or she complained about that. But those aren't accomplishments; those are excuses.
Let me just the final one, because this is in the barrage, is that you approved a $31 million tax hike as a NIFA board member.
So NIFA doesn't do tax hikes or tax decreases. NIFA does the math. And so there's a reason why you don't see any articles in the last 20 years about NIFA raising taxes or lowering taxes, because that's not what NIFA does, right? And you've reported on NIFA. Everyone reports on NIFA.
I think it was reported as the Nassau tax hike when you were there at NIFA.
Right. So the county raises taxes or lowers taxes. That's up to the county government. NIFA's job is very simple. It's a finance authority. Our job at the time and still today is to make sure that if the county executive who puts in the budget, the obligation for budgeting in the county level is the county executive. County executive submits a budget. We do the math on both sides of the ledger. We don't judge. We don't decide, this expenditure is not right, or this revenue stream is inappropriate. That's not what we do. What we do is we say, is this real? So if you say you're going to raise this money and you say you're going to spend this money, we make sure that the revenue equals the expenditures. And so we have no role in, and we're not even allowed to. Like we don't raise the number of revenue that's coming in or lower the number of revenue that's coming in. It's just not what we do. We can stop expenditure is what we can do. And so what we tell county executives, and I believe they would say that still today, that if you only bring in X revenue, then you can only spend this much money. We're going to limit your expenditure to the amount of money that you are bringing in. That's what NIFA does. We head up the balance sheets to make sure they work. And so when Ed Mangano, a Republican administration, again, Ed Mangano, Republican administration, the same people that are putting out these commercials, the exact same people, the people who stood with Ed Mangano, the people who are Ed Mangano, the same leaders, the same party people, the same person my opponent now stands with every day. It was their budget. It was their $31 million raise in a $31 million tax increase that they put into the budget in order to be able to spend the money they wanted to spend. NIFA, all we did is we added up and we say we certify the budget. And so when NIFA, and that happens every single year in the last 20 years. And so at no time ever has again, NIFA been written up as raising taxes or lowering taxes. It's not what NIFA does.
This was something that was during 2013 to 2016 when you were at NIFA. This is when Ed Mangano was the county executive and the Republicans controlled the county legislature.
Correct. So it was their budget, and so all we do is, we take their budget, we do the math, and we determine whether or not the expenditure side equals the revenue side. And if it does, we certify it. If it doesn't, we can reject it and tell them that they have to come back and do better math.
So let me ask you this question. Political campaigns have been known to stretch the truth in running campaigns. Some of them have been known to tell outright lies. Is this sort of within the fair grounds of the give and take in a political election? Or do you think that this is something different?
I think it is something different. This is not fair or appropriate or responsible or honest. And so the question is, who are the people that are putting out this disinformation? Are they good people? Are the people you trust? Are these the people you want to be managing your money, your family, your communities? The answer should be no. The reason why they're putting $1 million behind it, because they are lies, and people will discount this pretty quickly. Unless you can put $1 million or $2 million behind it and just repeat it. It's not an accident that people get a piece of mailing every 2 or 3 days with these negative hits, because people will get that it's not trustworthy, and they understand where it's coming from. It's coming from the Republican Party of Nassau County, and look what they brought us. The corrupt administrations and the breakdown in finance over and over and over and over again. And so the way they can try to achieve and maintain power is by distorting the truth, and that's what they're doing. Now the hope is that at least in the town of North Hempstead, the people will see through it, and they're putting all their money behind the big lie concept, right? Which they now know that works, right? You tell the same lie enough times, it becomes factual, or it becomes accepted as factual. And so that's all they're doing. It's not okay. It's not responsible. It's not appropriate. And the question becomes, do newspapers, do other people of goodwill challenge it? And so the question, and does the campaign challenge it? And people are asking me, are we able to challenge it? So, we're doing what we can, and we're going to spend, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're going to spend more than any Democratic campaign ever spent in North Hempstead. But the sheer volume of dollars that the Republican Party has put in to maintain power is pretty significant. So, so that's where we hope. You look at what happened with George Santos. My opponent's good friend, according to herself, right? Her endorsement was George Santos, my good friend. So when Jen DeSena endorses good friend as her good friend, they've adopted his persona, they've adopted his lies, they've adopted his strategy. You just keep lying; it doesn't matter. And so, is it good or bad? Is this ordinary? No, but this is the new normal, and this is certainly their new normal, right? It worked. They won with George Santos. They got what they wanted. They wanted to elect George Santos, and they won. And so they learned from that, and they're now telling the lie over and over and over again, and they're watching how it works, and they're doing it again because they believe that people don't figure it out, and sometimes they don't, and that's a shame. But no, it's not okay. It's not okay.
So
it's not
let's go to, well, let me jump to, and then we'll get to this one. Tax cuts. Jen DeSena, and the town Democrats voted last year for tax cuts, and they're committed to doing it again this year. She has, Supervisor DeSena has proposed tax cuts. Do you agree with them? Disagree? Do you think there's an issue with them?
Well, I certainly think there's an issue with them. The responsibility of government is to collect the lowest amount but appropriate amount of taxes to fulfill its obligations, and to meet those obligations in a way that are transparent and in a way that you can be held accountable for how you do it. The question when you put forward a budget is, again, kind of what we did at NIFA. You add the expenditure side to the revenue side, and do they match? It's accounting. Governments are supposed to balance their budgets. This does not do that. It does it in a dishonest and superficial way in terms of what she's presenting, and that's going to really come back to hurt this town in really, really serious and significant ways. And what I mean by that is, if you take a budget, $80 million, say, or $90 million, and the budget goes up, so the amount of expenditure in the general fund has gone up by $1 million or so, a couple $1 million, whatever it is. The revenue, based on the tax cuts that they're purporting, is going to go down significantly. That's going to leave a gap of millions upon millions of dollars. So what do? Well, they take it out of reserves. If you look at the reserve, and that's what they did last year, by the way. Now there were some significant reserves available, so they take the reserves, which it's appropriate to take some reserves when you have them, and to help your taxpayers out and reduce some costs. There's more appropriate ways to do that. There's combinations of ways you can do that. You can spend down debt. I would argue that the way you do that is you lower the cost of government. You spend those reserves on things that will reduce your annual costs going forward. So you reduce debt. You pay as you go. If you're going to buy a new truck, you don't bond for it. You pay for it as you go, and so that ultimately you have less debt service to pay for. If there's other ways, things you could put money in various reserves to pay for, say, litigation. So if you have litigation costs or healthcare costs or other such costs that are going up, you put in a reserve so you can spend that down so you don't have to raise costs. But by just taking it out of the budget, all that means, if you take $6 million out of the revenue side and fill it up with, cover it by fund balances and reserves, eventually those reserves run out. And when they do, that $6 million has no more revenue to match it. And so you then have to cut $6 million or $5 million or $8 million, whatever that number is, except it's $6 million.
Taxes down the road.
Or raise taxes. And down the road, it's not going to be $6 million anymore. It's going to be $8 million or $10 million, because every year the budget goes up a couple $1 million because cost of living goes up. Cost of living for salaries and fuel and just the cost of government. And so instead of being responsible and having a steady stream of revenue versus expenditure over the years, what this administration, my opponent, the Republicans, are doing is just wiping out the reserves over a series of years so that they can have the political messaging that they are just cutting taxes. And they're going to wipe out, over the course of the next few years, senior services, project independence, public safety, code enforcement, all the things, road maintenance, all these things that people count on their government to do. So they're going to give them some dollars back this year. And I believe it's appropriate to give something back. There are reserves, but it should be something that can be covered the next year and the years after. That you're not going to be stuck. And it should also be invested in ways that reduces the cost of government, like I had suggested, by paying down debt so that you have less debt service. That's the responsible thing to do. That's not what the Republicans are doing. That's certainly not what my Republican opponent is doing. She's just selling out the future of this town for her personal, immediate political advantage. That's what this is about. Because when was the last time you saw a tax cut like this? To propose, the size and scope of it, it's really just for the imagery of it. And it's for they're trying to counter it. It's all about political messaging. That's how they're governing. They're governing based on, they're choosing their political message, and then they're deciding the policy around it. That's disturbing, but that's what they're doing. And then they put $1 million where they're putting all the dollars in is the campaign. So they invest in the campaign because that's what counts. The governing part doesn't matter to them. And you look at that, because look how the government is now disassembling and diminishing, and look what's happened to the parks and the roads and the failure to maintain things. That's the shame of what's happening.
Are there things, another use of the money is other things that the town wasn't doing but could do? Do you see any programs, any projects, any things like that, that the money that is being cut could go toward?
Yeah, road repair, road maintenance, tree trimming. There's just basic, tree trimming is, sounds fairly innocuous, but when your power is out, it's usually because trees fell on your wires. The tree trimming budget is meant to kind of make sure that dangerous trees that might fall are removed, and trees that might fall on wires. Obviously, utilities do that as well, but the town has the ability to do it on their dime. And they had $1 million in there that was taken out. Another $3 million was removed from road repair and road construction. $250,000 was removed for beautification, just fixing up the medians and that kind of thing. People like to see, that the town invest in beautifying their neighborhoods, and it's something that the town should be doing. So I think the real crush is they dismantled much in the highway department, and I think that's really where the immediate needs going to be. Immediate cuts are. And that's for this year, right? So next year, highway department, God forbid it snows, and hopefully it won't. Maybe they're just counting on global warming. If for people who don't believe in global warming, I guess they're counting on it to not snow anymore, so they won't need to remove snow. But the question is, what about next year? Last year she cut project independence and senior services by hundreds or so $1,000. What happens next year when you have that big gap again, or the year after? The programs are just going to start wilting away, and usually what government does when government runs out of money, what they do is they stop hiring people, and they don't buy new equipment, and they eventually fail to maintain. It's the maintenance that costs more money in the long run. When you fail to maintain a road or a wall, eventually it breaks down quicker, and when it breaks down, you have to replace it completely. So instead of maintaining it, making it last longer, you have to spend significantly more dollars to replace. And so it's just mismanagement. It's a really inappropriate way to run a government.
So one of the big issues that has been there since your time is the building department,
yeah,
and the delay in approvals.
Yep.
Supervisor DeSena said that actually, and this has been an issue every election, even the one that she was elected. She then asked for an audit by the county controller of things, and basically has said she's awaiting the results of that. There's no time given for when that'll happen. It was about a year ago. What's your feeling on how to money that could be used, if you want to do it, is hire a couple more inspectors.
Yeah.
To do that, my suggestion. But my question is, what's your view on the building department?
Yeah, so think about that. This again is a when you have a supervisor who's really just an appendage of the political party, and her job is to just feed them and take from them. So she's taking their political apparatus and she feeds them whatever. It has nothing to do with governing. because she's clearly failing at that, and there's just nothing happening. And so, going to events is nice, but that's not governing. You look at the building department, just think about it. For 2 years, we're a couple, 2.5 months short of 2 years in office. And her sole success is that, well, she kicked it off to the county, Republican county controller, audit this. What does that mean? When was the last time you saw the county audit a building department? When was the last article you saw about that? It doesn't happen. It's not a thing. It's a cop-out. It's a scam. And this is, by the way, this is kind of a metaphor for virtually everything that this county, that this town supervisor does, right? It's, literally in her mail, it's, I demanded that the controller audit this. I had a press conference that they should stop this. I told, saying something to somebody isn't governing. But think about the building department. The asking for 2 years for audit, you're in charge. Fix the building department. Look at the budget. Talk to the employees. Talk to the individuals in the community that are impacted by it. Talk to the contractors and the architects. Talk to their associations. Figure out what they need. Well, how is it done in other places that works more efficiently? Do you go to type of certification or self-certification, which, by the way, presents some challenges, because when people self-certify, we found, certainly when I was there, that it wasn't always done correctly, and then you have to overcorrect to try to fix that. But there's ways to do it. There's ways other communities are having success at it. Do you have, my suggestion, of course, and we will have a complete building department plan. I have one already, in fact, and we will implement a plan that will fix the building department. And everybody who knows me knows that I know how to govern. I know how to fix what's broken, and this department is broken. And it's broken because there's zero leadership at the top. She has no capacity to fix this. She can't even engage with it. She won't even look at it. She sent it off to the county for 1.5 years. And she's not concerned that nothing happened. Where's the audit? It's an hour before election day, and she's like, well, someday they're going to tell me, and maybe we'll be surprised, or maybe we won't be if a few days before election day, or a couple of weeks before election day, we get some scathing audit that's just blaming everybody in the world, and the poor current supervisor just, she just couldn't handle it. And so the answer is investing in new inspectors, bringing on new plans examiners, using technology to make sure that the department is functioning at most capacity, putting in guardrails and guidelines so that we know that when you get an application, that within a matter of days it's going to be reviewed, and one thing after another, you're going to see a department emerge and be more efficient. I'm going to say all this stuff, and now maybe she'll figure it out. So it's like, she couldn't clearly do it. So we'll tell her how to fix the department. And maybe she'll start announcing that in the next day or so, or down the road. But certainly, we've been talking about it. I know how to fix that department. We're going to get it done. There's other challenges there that need to be met, and we're familiar with them. But we will get that department where people are getting their permits efficiently, and that everyone's held to the same standards, so that we can make sure that the public safety issues are always addressed, and that the community and the neighborhoods are preserved, and that people aren't exploiting the laws on their behalf, but that they are, when you're running a business, you should be getting a permit within a matter of days, and maybe a couple of weeks or a few weeks, but not months or years. It's totally inappropriate and needs to be addressed.
Now, let me ask you this. The problems with the building department, the complaints go back as far as your term in office. And we also had, during your term, a kickback scandal where the building inspectors were taking kickbacks and got arrested and convicted and did jail time. So when you're saying that you can fix it, how do you answer people who will say, well, when you were there were delays, and you even had your department inspectors who were taking kickbacks?
Well, I was the one who found the corruption, right? It was my system that I put in place. I came into office saying that something's wrong with the building department. It's not working. It's not functioning right. So we put in a new system. Literally, if you go back to the stories, it's all printed. It's all recorded and documented. First thing I did when I came in, you could look at my first state of the town and all that. We said that we're going to put in new systems because we can't trust the old systems, the old technology, the old process, the old way of doing business was really inappropriate. And I brought in the whole concept of 311 and Townstat. And what that is it's not just a call center, by the way. It's using data analytics and data management to govern, to make your decisions. And so we put in this new technology. We spent $1 million on a new system, a new technology system, new computer systems. And the new systems didn't allow somebody to manipulate the information. Whereas the old system, you can go and erase information. And that was really dangerous when someone can go in and just rewrite history, especially when you're dealing with building departments and code enforcement and such. So it took the first year, I made the case to invest in the second year. We obtained this new system. And a little over 2 years, we deployed the system. It was then that we found the corruption. And so I then engaged and kind of publicized that we found all these problems in the building department. We turned it over to the district attorney's office. We worked with the district attorney's office by providing them tens of thousands of documents, ultimately showing that people were manipulating the information in the computer system to show that so that people can build buildings higher and wider and violate setbacks and square footage responsibilities and obligations, that they can get permits. And so it really was a problem with the number of people. And those people got arrested and were held accountable. But that was, I'm the guy that lifted the rock, found the corruption, went after the guys and cleaned it up. And so over the next few years, we were in distress because the investigation went on for several years. So it wasn't like we could just clean up the department right then. We were going through this, records were being preserved. So it took several years for us to kind of wind our way through with the district attorney's office that investigation. And it was a really challenging thing, there's no doubt. I met with the editorial board, Newsday, many times over. Your newspaper, other newspapers did stories on it. I would eventually, as we got near the end of my term, we started, I actually did have a conference. I had a conference featuring local architects, contractors, community leaders, building inspectors, experts in the field. I moved to have the department nationally certified so that we would have the highest standards in the country. The problem with doing that is it's very expensive. You have to have more people, you have to hire more people. You have to have certain types of skill sets of the people that you do hire. I was prepared to do that. Because of the costs and some of the issues financially at the time, I think, when the next supervisor came in, they weren't really prepared to do that. And I understand why. But the approach that I took at the end was to get permits out. And the statistics, if you look at the statistics, my final 2 years, permits were being issued in greater numbers than ever before. We had actually changed the kind of the direction that it was going in. The problem is, that the department really is. It's a challenge when everyone's attacking it, and that there's a mistrust in the department and various administrations, and ultimately it stagnates. And so, I look at it now and say, I've been through that process and have a great comfort knowing that, I have no fear about going into the building department and say, this is how we're going to fix it. It's a challenge. Again, my opponent just kicked it to the county. Didn't want to go into it, doesn't want to touch it. I'm gonna fix it, and I'm gonna fix it because I understand how the process. I understand how it works. I understand what was wrong with it before because I found the problems. I uncovered them. I held those accountable that perpetuated any kind of fraud, and ultimately spoke to all the experts in the field. I've then since, by the way, been involved with other governments and learned even more. I have the noise out there, I think my skills and perspectives have increased, and so I expect that we're gonna be able to take that job and do a really good job fixing that department.
Housing. This has been a big issue. The governor Hochul said that there's a shortage of 800,000 homes, housing units in New York. She has proposed, and this has driven up rents in New York City apartment. It's driven up housing costs here. Nassau County is second, only behind Suffolk County with the highest percentage of single-family homes. There's been no growth in population virtually since 1960. Governor Hochul first proposed accessory dwelling units, then a plan for 3% increase. This was opposed by not only the town supervisor, but Democratic council members. What's your feeling on, is there a need to, for more housing? Is there a responsibility? Is there a need for Nassau County to increase the amount of housing units? And if so, how would you do it?
So first and foremost, I disagree with the governor's approach, and I've said so publicly, and I've actually, during the time that was being proposed, which was during the budget period, I spoke to our legislators and made it clear that, the leadership that I work with, I was deputy county executive in Suffolk County. There was great opposition there. I opposed it. People in my community opposed it. It's not appropriate to try to overrule zoning in order to get more housing stock approved. That's just a inappropriate way to try to achieve whatever goal she had. And we don't need the volume, I believe, that the governor was trying to impose. I think that we should be open to new housing development when it's appropriate. And the question is really that: when is it appropriate? How can it work? Housing is appropriate when it doesn't create too much density, that it doesn't overburden the school system, that it doesn't create some environmental hazard, when that the public safety issues are addressed in terms of ingress and egress into the property. How much traffic will it create? All those environmental issues, and environmental in the broadest sense of the word, have to be addressed. And so the way I've done it in North Hempstead as town supervisor, and the way it happens in most governments that are functional, is that a developer of some sort will come in and look to propose a project, and then you engage the community leaders and the neighbors, the people who are most impacted. You engage the various providers such as water and sanitation and the school district and the local departments that will be affected in terms of the roads and and see how you can make sure that if a project is to go forward, the project is part of the solution and not part of the problem.
But developers, there's let me push back on this. There's two. Number one, developers, architects, people say they don't want to do business in this area for the simple reason they don't want to do it. And this has been the mantra, case by case basis.
Yeah.
If they have to do it as they want the zoning to be changed up front, they don't want to come in and need a variance, because that's another step, that's more expense, and that's a degree of uncertainty, and they can go elsewhere. And that's what they, in fact, have been doing. You have a population, the fact that there is a shortage of housing actually benefits the people who are living here. It drives up the value of their home. So for the people living here, that's a good thing. For the people who don't, like the children of people, young couples, young people moving here, it's very hard to get, you're going to see that approval. And that's why states like Massachusetts and California basically said, if you leave it to local officials, you're not going to get significant addition of housing units. So how do you answer that? Because if you're going to leave it over one, that you've been told, the developers are already telling you, if you're going to leave it to that, we're not going to develop in here. We'll go elsewhere. So is that okay? Is that okay with you that we're not doing that?
Yeah, I don't think it's accurate. I think, first of all, that you have to you want to come into a community and build, you have to go through the local community. I mean, there's just, and it's happened, and it works from time to time, and sometimes it doesn't. And there are costs to putting forward a project, and the value when you succeed is great. And so, the developers that do this want to know that they have a partner in government. But if you're going to be government's going to be a partner, they have to be solving, a number of the concerns and issues that the government's going to have, and those generally relate to what the community has. But there's been housing that's been built in North Hempstead over the years, and in villages and in unincorporated area. It's not as if it's been stagnant. And so, we're one of the challenges is that it's a community that's in many respects built out. And so you can't pave over, the entire community and say, we're just going to keep on building. There are limitations to how much density a community can bear. We don't have, subway systems, and we don't have, this urban kind of mentality, and we shouldn't. There's different places have to have their own character. And so we should support appropriate housing developments when they're not too dense, when they meet the community's expectations and needs. And it doesn't mean that everybody approves of it. That's not what it is. But you still have to cross that threshold to get to some point, to get to some level of success. And so, I get it that it's hard. I think that
Why not,
developers.
why not do that in advance? Why not take it on to make it amenable, more amenable for developers, come up with what you want and zone an area, a block, an 8 block area where it would be, where you think it's appropriate, and have the battle out in front rather than having developers and architects have to come in and know they're going to have that one project is going to run into opposition. Why not just make a decision in advance of it? You could just make it 2 or 3 levels of residential above retail. Why not do that in advance of somebody?
We've done that. We've done it in Port Washington. The zoning was changed. There was a zoning district created allowing up to 3 stories and residential on the 2nd and 3rd story. Certainly, I've done that when I was there, and we've done it in other areas of the town as well. Obviously, we only control the unincorporated areas. Some of the villages have done that in their community. And so it has happened in terms of changing the zoning. But that's what you're talking about. It has to be a change of zone. And so we change the zone, really, even that, it has to come from the community. The community has to want and need and this change in order for it to happen. So for a government to simply say, we're going to pick some certain areas and then let developers come in and have their day, it's just generally not the way local government works. And I don't know that it's, again, not been working. There are other areas that I think would be more susceptible or acceptable to more intense density. But we've got a lot of people squeezed into a fairly small, tight area. It's not as if this town has just empty spaces where we can build more density. Traffic is a concern. The impact on water is a concern. Our ability to meet the needs of more density. And more density simply means having more people on a smaller piece of land. And it happens from time to time. And maybe there's sites where it's already industrial, or it's already zoned, or it's already poised to be an improvement if you build some housing. But I believe it has to be on a case-by-case basis. I think it's worked in many respects. I don't think North Hempstead or a lot of the communities on Long Island are going to solve this one answer. It's a big state. There's places where we can expand housing.
Let me ask you one thing that has been presented that the town of North Hempstead has, and that is transit-oriented areas where people have been talking about concentrating that is transit-oriented development. That has been cited as one of the ways to help the downtown business districts. The places like Middle Neck Road in Great Neck, which has a number of empty storefronts, as the way of having those residential units above the commercial district to allow for traffic and people in there without adding to car traffic because it's near the railroad. That's been cited, and that's what the governor had proposed. Why not see what's available in all those areas? The MTA just spent $14 billion on the 2nd Avenue, on the Grand Central Access, and having the 3rd track to provide greater service for the Long Island Railroad. Why not look at that and see how that can take advantage in terms of housing?
Yeah, and the riders in North Hempstead and Nassau County and Suffolk County pay for that in many respects, and it comes through taxes. It comes through other means as well, of course. The Great Neck has multiple residential properties on 2nd and 3rd floors and 4th and 5th floors. There's numerous 4, 5, and 6-story buildings, residential buildings along the business corridor here in Great Neck. There's 3 properties that are being developed right now, multi-story housing developments. And Great Neck is, I don't want to say saturated, but it certainly has done its share of housing. And there's still stores that go out from time to time, and that there's different reasons for that. But I think each community has to decide for itself, the character that they want to operate within. And, sometimes people want to be able to build a little higher because it brings in more revenue and it reduces the cost of taxes on the local homeowners when you have more density on Main Street or by the train station, because they pay more taxes there, and that reduces the cost for other places. But it still needs to be a local decision that the town board makes, town supervisor, town board makes with the community, in the discussion, and the developers in the discussion. And again, like I said, it's happened. There's been a number of projects going on throughout. I don't think we've ever had zero projects being constructed. So there's clearly people are figuring it out. But that doesn't mean we need to build to the size and scope that the governor was speaking about. I don't think we should. I don't think we can. I would not support that. I don't think that we can or should or ever will overrule local zoning. I think that's kind of the bedrock of what it means to have local control and be, control your own destiny in the community you live in. And so, housing is something that we will continue to work at, but it's not easy, right? It's not, these issues that we face are not easy. They require conversation and education, and that's just on the officials, but the whole community has to be part of that discussion. And certainly that's what I'm known to do, by the way. And so I would continue.
You mentioned earlier on, and it's been mentioned in some of the mailings, the issue of crime. And you said that you would be able to respond to it. Well, what is the role in the town supervisor? What can the town supervisor do in terms of crime? The county has a police force. Some of the villages have police forces, but the town of North Hempstead doesn't. So what role would either for good or for bad, would a town supervisor have in impacting what the crime rate is?
Well, first of all, I mean, we don't have a town police force. That's true, but we do oversee, budgets that impact police. We do have a platform from which to speak, and so making sure that there's a comfort and confidence with our police department. I chaired the police reform task force in Suffolk County a couple of years back, and I did that in a manner that brought in the police experts and the police unions. I also, we also brought in the advocates, community leaders, and those impacted by the police operations. And so it's really about being that forum to make sure that there's an appropriate dialogue and to help make sure the police can navigate the challenges in our community. We're at the ground level, we're at the front line. And so the town supervisor is able to engage the county police, the local village police forces, work with the mayors, work with the county government, and do it in a way that makes sure that we're addressing needs, whether it's where there might be have greater needs. If there's certain areas that are suffering a heightened crime rate for some reason or another, what can we do? Can we change our road structures? Can we put up better lighting? Can we put some government program somewhere that'll give people comfort or confidence that we're aware of what their problem is? Can we do education forums? And I've done that throughout my career. Work with the police, always bringing in police leaders and experts, trying to figure out how to make the community safer when it comes to stop signs or traffic. How do we, by the way, every project that we go through when we approve of a site plan, public safety is part of it. And it's not just police and law enforcement, it's fire, it's traffic. We're all in this together. So we need to be able to work and understand what the law enforcement needs are. We need to be able to communicate to them what our needs are. We need to be able to make sure the people impacted are at the table. And that involves law enforcement as well. And so it's, again, I negotiate law enforcement contracts. I work with police regularly. I was with the police commissioner in Suffolk County today, talking to school superintendents about threats relating to what's going on in Israel and concerns that local communities have. I'm very comfortable and working with our police. I have history with them. I respect them, and I believe law enforcement is critical to the quality of life that we have here in North Hempstead and Nassau County.
Okay. Give you your final question. Thank you very much in advance for taking the time. We appreciate it. Why should voters Why should Nassau County voters vote for you rather than Jennifer DeSena?
I believe voters should vote for me because I'm trusted and I'm tested. The challenges we face are real. The current executive has not shown that she's either able or willing to do what's necessary to protect this town, to engage, solve the problems that are needed, to respond in ways that the community expects. I have a history of making sure that the issues that we're confronting are confronted in a way that includes the community that gets the job done, whether it's flooding. You know, we had flooding in Mineola and Carr Place years ago. So I engaged with a Republican senator and a Republican mayor and a Democratic county executive. And we brought people together, and the town came and we invested dollars. We put our money where our mouth is, and we work with the community, and together we solve the problem. And that's what I do. We find out what's going wrong. How do we make people's lives better? Where is the investment needed? What is the discussion that needs to be had? And you look at something like the building department. I don't make excuses. I get the job done, and I get it done well. And to me, it's really important that people believe that local government can be trusted. And because of my history, because of the successes that I've had, because of the experience, and even the new experience that I have, I'm not the same person I was, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I've done new things. In Suffolk County, I work with the state, helped rebuild after Sandy. I'm taking these new experiences and looking forward. How do we look at the town now? What do we do to make sure that we're addressing our longer term concerns, and that might include public safety and housing, and how do we get along with each other? How do we make sure that we have confidence in our systems? I believe I can do that. I've done it before. I will continue to do that. And I hope the people of North Hempstead can disregard the disinformation and lies that my opponent, that's who she is. That's who they are. And if that's what you want, I can't really do anything about it. But I don't think anyone really wants that. Nobody wants the disassembling, the excuse making, the lies, the distortions, the slanders. If that's what you need to run a government, then there's something wrong. And so I would say we should reject that. Reject that whole approach. Reject the Santos style of governing and campaigning, and come back to us. The Democratic Party has a tremendous slate of candidates who are all qualified, experienced, have great integrity, great ability, and I hope that the people follow through, look at my record, look at who I am, get to know me better, and I hope they'll vote for me on election day.
Okay, I'd like to thank again our sponsors, Northwell Health. Let everybody know that a story about our interview will be in our paper in the coming week, I hope. A recording of today's discussion can be found on the island360.com, that website, that's ours, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. And I want to again thank Jon Kaiman, the Democratic candidate for North Hempstead Supervisor, for taking the time and sitting down with us, sharing his views. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the voters, to you.